Welcome to the Feria TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Dr. Crystal T. Harrell, a number one best-selling author, motivational speaker, and public health expert with a truly remarkable journey. She went from growing up in public housing to earning a PhD from Yale University, securing over $617,000 in scholarships along the way. But her story isn't just about academic achievement. Profound personal awakening led her to become a certified mindfulness instructor, and she now bridges the world of evidence-based science and spiritual growth. In this episode, we'll explore how to unlock human potential by integrating inner well-being with outer sources. So, Dr. Krista, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ezekiel. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. I'm excited to have you here today. So, quickly, let's dive in. Your journey spans an incredible arc from public housing to a PhD from Yale, down to becoming a mindfulness instructor and a best-selling author. So, what is the unifying thread that connects these seemingly different chapters of your life?
This is a very good question. I never really thought about that common thread. I guess it would have to be the fact that everything that I've ever done or everything that I even hope to do has always been about vision, right? It has always been about this is what I saw in my heart, in my mind's eye. And I just wanted to see if it was possible for me, even with everything stacked against me. Like you mentioned, starting in public housing, which for your listeners, that is the government basically providing assistance, living assistance for families who live below the poverty level in the United States. So that was an interesting time growing up. My parents did the best that they could with what they were given. And yeah, it was an interesting time, but I always saw a bigger vision for myself. I didn't see Yale. I didn't see becoming a PhD whenever I first got started, but I got the vision as I started to go. It's kind of like when Rumi said, as you walk the way appears. As you take the first step, you see the entire staircase. So it was always following the vision, always following my heart. And that led me to more and more beautiful destinations, and I'm still on that journey, right? We never leave our journey. But it's been an interesting ride seeing the beginning and then seeing this point in the journey.
Amazing, a true visionary indeed. Dr. Crystal, let's talk about a moment you've shared. So, in 2018, you realized you were living through the lens of a quote unquote traumatized child. So, for the high achievers in our audience, what did that realization actually feel like? And what was the first small step you took to reconnecting with your wholeness?
Mm. Yeah, you have amazing questions. So the reason why I said that I was living through the lens of a traumatized child is because we talked about, growing up in public housing and, being one of 10. So I was the seventh born child out of 10 children. So you can imagine that's a lot of mouths to feed already on a limited income. So both my parents were ministers. They didn't go to college. So I'm a first generation college student, but my parents worked very hard. They were very hardworking people. And when I was 8, my dad ended up getting sick and he couldn't work anymore. And so now he was a, stay-at-home dad, and but while he was at home, he was also very tired and very ill. So I was, watching my parent become sicker and sicker and not fully understanding because I was 11 at the time, well, 8 and 11 when he, passed away. So that was a lot to take in. I was a very sensitive child and I was very much a daddy's girl. So, being around him all the time and wanting to know what was happening, but not fully understanding what was happening, that was very traumatic. And I would say the biggest, the biggest trauma happened, first watching that and then all the chaos that happened after that. Like my mom moved a total of 6 times. It was 6 of us left in the house, but she was still supporting a few other, of the children who were, on their own. You know how it is sometimes. Uh, but that was hard to watch. That was hard to experience. So I kind of disassociated for a while, and I saw going to school as a ticket out of that situation. I wanted to be free of feeling that way, of experiencing that type of chaos. I wanted to feel safe in my body again. And I didn't feel that way until I was about 20, 26, 27, which is a couple of years back. So this is a new life for me. But back in the time you referenced in 2018, I was 23 at the time, and I was completing my first master's degree at Auburn University. And on paper, everything looked good, right? Like I secured over $670,000 in scholarships. I was, at one of the top master's program in the state for human development and family studies. Like, everything looked good. And I was always smiling on social media. So you wouldn't have been able to tell that I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, even. I was having panic attacks so bad that I had to go to the nurse's office. I was going through counseling and trying to get help for the mental health issues I was struggling with at the time that I didn't fully understand was related to that event of watching a parent die. And so it was like a random Tuesday morning, and I remember waking up because I was just so sad. And I remember thinking when I woke up, like, wow, I wish I hadn't woke up. Like, I wish I just stayed asleep. And I remember watching that thought cross my mind. Like, it's hard to explain, but I saw in that moment, like, there was a separation between my true self, right? Me, the observer, watching that thought cross my mind, almost like you watching a train cross the tracks. And for that split second, I realized that I was not that thought, that I was the awareness behind the thought. And I wanted to know if it was possible to get back to the child version of me that was so loving, so carefree before watching my father pass away. That that event in 2018 of just recognizing that I was not my thought, there was some separation, and then remembering myself as a child, I wanted to know if it was possible. So that kind of sparked this journey of self-discovery, which I wrote about in my first book. And and it's led me here, 7 years later. And I can honestly say that I'm a much different person. Like I haven't had a panic attack in almost 4.5 years. Anxiety no longer lives in my body. You do get those moments where you get nervous or anxious, like before do a podcast interview, but it's not a part of me anymore. And I no longer have to take pills to go to sleep. So it's just like there was this whole transformation that occurred just from recognizing that I had a choice about my health. I had a choice about the way I was showing up in the world, and that I could decide to go on this journey to get to know the true me. And that changed my entire life. That changed everything for me.
That is indeed an inspiring story there, Dr. Crystal. A really great one. So moving on, you secured over $670,000 in scholarships, including the prestigious Gates Millennium Scholarship. So, beyond the grades, what was your strategy for presenting yourself and your story in a way that made you stand out to selection committees?
Yeah, so every scholarship gives you scholarship essays. So you usually have to. There are some scholarships that doesn't require you to write an essay, but the ones that you really want, the ones that really offer the most, I guess I would say the biggest bang for your buck, those are the ones that you have to write for. So there were several strategies I used, but I'll list the ones that I truly felt like made the biggest difference. The first strategy is that I got help, right? So this was 2012, 2013, and we didn't have AI. We didn't have a lot of the tools that you guys have available to you now. So when I wrote my college essays, when I wrote the scholarship essays, I would take my essays to my English instructor and my grammar teacher, and I would say, could you please read over my scholarship application? Now, they had a choice. They could have said, no, I don't have time, but they all said yes. So I was taking my scholarship essays to educators who I felt close with, who I felt like could really help me. And I wanted to get someone to look at it from the perspective of, they're an adult. they're in higher education, what would you like to see from a student who is writing and asking for funding? So it was very beneficial to get that second pair of eyes on my scholarships and not just going to, my mom for help or people who, weren't necessarily in higher education or in the educational niche or field. I wanted specifically educators and teachers who were always reading academic papers or always reading, student work because they knew they had the eye for, what these scholarship committees probably were looking for. So that was the biggest piece of advice was going to educators to get them to read over my essays. And the second thing was the power of storytelling. So in my scholarship essays, I used all the trauma, everything I just explained to you about, watching a parent, suffer from a chronic disease, being raised in public housing, being one of 10. I just told that story and I used my story as a way to get these committees to see that I need this money. Like there is no plan B for me. And I was very, I was very adamant about if it wasn't college, then I don't know. I didn't have a plan B at the time. I knew that I had to put all of my energy and all of my focus into getting free money for school because school was my goal. And I needed to do everything in my power to see if it was possible. And I knew that if I didn't apply for a scholarship, then the answer would be no. So if you don't apply, you won't get it. If you do apply, you might get rejected, but then you might not. I got rejected from so many scholarships, but I also got a lot of other scholarship money. So, there's a balance to it. I think it kind of builds your character as you're going through that process because you start to learn how to deal with rejection. And because it doesn't stop you. If someone denies you, it's not a blow on your self-worth. It has nothing to do with who you are. It's just maybe you just weren't what they were looking for, but it doesn't matter. So I would say that was the biggest thing. And the last thing I would say is just be consistent, be as consistent as possible and stay organized with what you're applying to. So I kept a notebook, like a physical notebook, and I listed all the scholarships and I put when they were due. And I made sure that I submitted no matter what, happened. I submitted my scholarship before that due date. And those were the three biggest things, strategies that I would say were the most important.
Great. Lots of inspirations and motivations from your response there, Dr. Crystal. So I like to ask, as a certified mindfulness-based stress reduction instructor, so what is one simple, concrete technique that a stressed out student or perhaps a professional facing a tight deadline can use to regain their focus and calmness back?
Yeah. So I say this all the time when I'm working with students, but mindfulness is not just a practice, it's a way of life. You can approach no matter what it is, whether you're washing dishes, doing homework, whatever it is that whatever activity you're engaging in, you can approach it with a mindfulness based um, awareness. And mindfulness is just the ability to be present with whatever it is that you're doing. So, for example, if I'm working on a paper, I'm not on social media trying to scroll while I'm, typing. I'm not trying to have 5 or 6 different conversations while I'm working in the library on my paper. I'm totally present with whatever activity I'm doing, and I'm putting my awareness and my heart into whatever it is that I'm doing. That's just like a simple way. And it does, I guess, take practice in some sense, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And I always just say, bring your awareness back to your breathing. So I like to slow down to a point where I notice my own heartbeat, like I can hear my own heartbeat or I can feel my own breathing. And that kind of slows me down because if I'm going really fast and I'm not paying attention to my own breathing, but if I'm slowing down a bit and I'm like, okay, I'm breathing, I'm taking a breath in, I'm taking a breath out. Like that helps me get a little bit more present. And so those are very simple techniques that I share with students, but there are so many. You have walking meditation, you have sitting meditation, you have journaling, which is my favorite mindfulness-based stress reduction practice. And I just kind of do a mind dump. So I just write everything that I'm feeling and no structure. You can have structure if that's what works for you, but every person is different. So you kind of have to try different things and see what works for you, see what resonates the most with you.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Crystal, I'd like to talk about your book for a while. Your book is titled crystal clear. That's quite a fantastic name, I'd say, firstly. So, tell us, what does that phrase mean to you? And what is the one thing you hope a reader takes away from it that can help them in their own growth process?
Yeah. So first, my mom gave me the title for that book. um, I started it during a time where I was in grad school and I was dealing with a lot of stress. But students kept coming to me asking for help. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to help other students when I'm barely keeping myself afloat? So my mom told me to write a book. She said, name it Crystal Clear. And when students come to you asking for help, just give them a copy of your book. And so it took me a while to finally finish the book. In fact, it wasn't until the pandemic hit where I actually was able to slow down and take the time to finish it. I ended up selling my TV and I used that money to invest in a publication coach to help me write it. And that was the biggest game changer for me. But that book, the title especially, it just means clarity. It's the subtitle is a journey of self-discovery. And I wrote it because every time a student would come to me and ask for help, they would always ask me the same question. How did you do it? And so I just wrote every detail of how I went from, starting in public housing in rural Alabama to how I got to where I was at Yale University as a doctoral student. So I just wanted to give students a framework for how one person did it. I tell them in the beginning of the book, this is not the way. I'm not teaching you the ultimate way to do something, but I'm giving you an example of a way that I did it. And I don't think it matters what goal the student has or what goal the person has, whether that's going to school, starting your own company. There's a process, and the process starts with getting to know who you are and getting clear on who you are and what you stand for. And so that's the basis of the book. That's the kind of undertone behind the book, is just getting clear on your journey of self discovery.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, for the students and early professionals listening who are burning the candle at both ends, so what is an early warning sign that they are prioritizing achievements over their own well-being?
Ooh, anxiety. Anxiety, like feeling like you can't get rest, feeling like no matter what you do is good enough. Those are early warning signs that you're going in the wrong direction. Not so much that what you're doing is the wrong thing, right? Like when I went through my big transformation, I didn't stop pursuing school. Like I had this kind of awakening my third year or my first year into my doctoral program, and that changed everything for me. Like I didn't stop pursuing my doctorate because I had this realization that I'm more than my degree, that my degree was a tool that I was using to achieve a bigger mission, which was to impact my community in a way that made sense for me. So you don't stop, you just kind of get clear on why you're going in a certain direction. And like I said, I stopped having panic attacks during that time because I was able to get more grounded in the truth of who I am. And so I truly believe that those warning signs are things like anxiousness, being always anxious, dealing with burnout, feeling like you can't get rest. Um, not really feeling like what you're doing makes sense or it's worth it. I think when you get to that point, it's time to take a step back and really evaluate who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
Perfect. So, Dr. Krista, you are a TEDx speaker. So, speaking on a TEDx stage is, I would say, it's a dream for many. So, how did you distill such a profound personal journey into a clear, impactful talk that, and what was like, the most nerve-wracking part of that experience for you?
Yeah, so that's a good question because there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes in order to make that happen. So when I first got the call that I was moving on to the next stage and being able to speak on the TEDx stage, um, I they assigned a coach. So every time you're selected to be a TEDx speaker, you are assigned a coach to work with you and to help you kind of refine your speech. So when I first got my coach assigned, I read my speech and it was over 20 minutes long. And he immediately said, no, we have to shorten this. And so he was able, he was I guess, the mastermind behind helping me condense my speech in a way that made sense while still having the same underlying story. So he didn't change the essence of what it is that I was sharing, but he just helped me condense it in a way that made sense to an audience, to a listener. So I would say working with someone who has a lot of experience, that was the way that I was able to condense it. But it was a truly profound experience because I wanted to do a TEDx talk for 10 years. I wanted to do that, and then it happened, and I'm still processing it all these years later because I don't think I fully set in that moment because I was in school at the time trying to finish my doctorate, and yeah, it's I guess I haven't really processed that yet.
Okay. So, looking back, what is a piece of well-meaning advice that you were given in your academic career, in early days of your academic career, that you now actually disagree with? And what would you replace it with?
Ooh, man, these questions are so good. Early advice that I was giving that I would now disagree with. I guess like when I first started applying for scholarships, and I first started applying for college, when I was in high school, I had an educator, a guidance counselor who basically told me that, I shouldn't do that because even if I did, get into my dream school, I wouldn't have had the money to pay for it because of my family situation. Like those were, her words. And that was very hard for me to sit with because I had the vision, right? I had the vision of going to school. Excuse me. I had the vision of achieving, getting my bachelor's degree and being in a classroom and feeling like a normal student for once. And when I got that advice, I can see now where she was coming from because you don't want to take on student debt. Student debt is astronomically high in the US. Like I think the average student debt is like $200,000. Um, and that's a lot of debt to take on, especially when you're that young. So I can see where she was coming from in a sense where she didn't want me to be in a situation where I was, in a financial bind, trying to apply for loans and student loans and all these things. But at the same time, now that I'm older or now that I've gotten to the other part of that, I wish she would have given me more options, like said, okay, like this is the issue. So I know that your family is struggling financially, but there are other options for you. So I guess that's why I'm so passionate about helping students. And anytime a student comes to me with whatever goal they want to achieve, I've helped students get into Ivy League schools. Like one of the students I work with, she was actually a Rwandan refugee when she came to the US. So she didn't even have a high school diploma when she came, and she worked her way up. And we actually walked across the graduation stage together at Yale. So I believe that truly all things are possible. It doesn't matter where you come from, and I don't know what students are capable of doing. So if they're coming to me with a vision, with a goal, my job as a mentor, as a coach is to say, okay, this is your goal. How can I help you get there? What resources do you need from me? And I just pull on everything that I've experienced, everything that I don't want my student to experience, and I help them. So I think that, I wish that she was maybe had more of that mentality. Like, I may not know how to help you get to the next goal, but I can sure try. I can figure out what resources we have for you. So I guess that's why, in a way, I sort of became that type of mentor.
Oh, wow, that was a really, really great response there. So, part of your vision is to raise awareness of our human potential. So, in your vision to raise awareness for or of our human potential, what is like a limiting belief that you see holding back incredibly talented and technical people the most?
They doubt themselves a lot. Like a lot of very educated,
Hmm.
intellectual students, they don't believe that who they are is enough to accomplish that goal. They feel like anybody can do it but me. And it's so funny because I don't know why that is. Some of the most talented students, some of the most intelligent students I've worked with have had the most self-doubt, and myself included. And it's just I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's maybe a societal thing, like maybe, you know, they're not encouraged enough. Maybe they're not their talent isn't nurtured enough, isn't they're not poured into enough. They don't have people in their corner telling them that they can do it, telling them that they're smart enough, that they're good enough. I just don't think that they're celebrated enough. I don't think their genius is celebrated enough, so I think they doubt themselves, and we don't have enough educators, we don't have enough mentors reminding them of their own greatness. So that is the biggest limiting belief that I've seen among students is they don't know how good they are.
Mm, okay. So, this limiting belief you just talked about, if you were to find a student having these self-doubts and limiting belief of themselves, what would you tell them? How would you encourage them to overcome these limitations?
I get them to listen to their own responses so they can see just how, um, false it is, you know? And so, like, for example, one student I was working with, I was helping her get her paper published. She was a high school student and she was wanting to get a publication so that it looked good on her college applications. And in the beginning, when we first started working together, she was so, she didn't know how intelligent she was. She didn't know how capable she was. So I started telling her a piece of my journey. Like I told her, like I had less than below average test scores before I got accepted into Yale. Like my test scores were so low I've even dumped them, like, I forgot about it because I'm just so embarrassed about how low they were, but I still ended up where I was supposed to be, and I just got her to talk about those feelings that she was experiencing so that she could voice them because a lot of students don't get the space they need to voice what they're going through. And so my goal as a coach, as a mentor, is to actually provide a safe space so that they know there's no judgment here. You can voice whatever it is that you're feeling. And a lot of the times after they talk about it and they hear themselves, they realize how, you know, how like, oh, actually that does sound kind of silly that I think this way because yeah, I am the A student or yes, I am the top of my class. So they just need a space to just talk about it and be reassured that no, you're more than capable. And I hope that's what I provide. I've gotten feedback from students that that's what I provided, but I'm always looking for ways to be a better mentor and to make sure that students know how capable they are. So it's just talking about it, being honest about your own journey as a student, and just opening up that space, opening up that conversation.
Wonderful. So, tell us, Dr. Crystal, what does the word innovation truly mean to you, and how does it relate to your life, your field, your work, and your everyday activities?
Yes, I love the word innovation. In fact, when I first started my coaching company, when I was certified as an academic success coach, I started working with students in 2020. Well, officially, I was already working with them beforehand, but I, offered my service to them officially in 2020. And the name of my company was Crystal Clear Innovation. So that word means a lot to me because for me, I wanted to create something that was new. I wanted to create something that maybe was always needed, but hasn't really been implemented yet. So innovation to me is just kind of coming in and shaking things up, seeing what the needs are, seeing what do people need the most and offering an innovative solution to that because if it was something that was being addressed right if that need was being served then there would be no need right like students wouldn't say like hey I feel stressed out I feel burnt out I don't feel like I'm being supported those complaints or those issues would cease to exist but that's not the case in fact students in the US some of the second leading cause of death among college students in the US is suicide. And major risk factors for that are things like stress and burnout and depression. And students need the most help. Young adults need the most help, but they're getting the least amount of assistance. So innovation to me meant doing something different, offering a solution that should have been there but wasn't, and doing it in a way that felt like it was full of integrity and it was based on something that I needed when I was in the same process.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is indeed, you know, uh, an interesting way to see the meaning of the word innovation. So, finally, for our listeners who are inspired to begin their own journey of inner work and outer achievement, what is the best place for them to find your resources, connect with you, and perhaps learn more about your book?
Yeah, so everything that I do is on my website. So Crystal T Harrell .com. There you'll find all of my resources. Like I have free tutorials there for students on my YouTube channel. I have a free blog there so students can read about some of the services and some of the research that I was doing while I was in school. There's a lot of things I offer on my website, and you'll also find links to my social media accounts on there. I'm not as active as I could be, but I'm getting a lot better these days. So you can shoot me a DM if you feel like you have any more questions. I love connecting with students. It's always been one of my favorite things to do. So any way I can serve you, anything that you don't see on my website, I need to know so I can provide that resource, right?
Amazing, Dr. Crystal. It's been a really, really inspirational and insightful conversation with you, and I'm excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Ezekiel. It's been great connecting with you and learning more. Getting these insightful questions, they make me reflect as well.
So thank you very much.